Hi, this is Scott McCark, and this is the Real Estate World Podcast. We are, I believe, live on Facebook today. We couldn't make the connection yesterday. I don't know what was going on with Facebook, but I spent the better part of about an hour trying to connect, and I believe that the NSA had finally cut me off, or either that, or there was some collusion with Zuckerberg. Maybe the Google guys, and they finally have decided to shut us down here because we have courage, and we have courage to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. And so help us God, we're going to keep telling it, and until they finally do shut us off. It harkens to the days of my youth when I was just a wee lad on the farm, and I'll tell you, as a wee lad, we did a lot more. My parents would probably be put in jail right now if the government knew what they were having us do for work. I think they mounted us with bungee cords onto a tractor when we were like 5 years old, and we were told to just hold on to the steering wheel for dear life as we went in the lowest gear across these fields and picked up the rocks that were in the fields. And for those of you not familiar with rock picking, it is it's as awful as it sounds. It's a terrible thing. It's basically you go through these farm fields and you pick these big rocks out of the field, because if you don't pick them up, it'll damage the equipment that you use to plant and harvest the grains, the corn, the wheat, the oats, and so on. Hay, alfalfa, you cut it through and you come through with this they call it a hay bine or a swatter or whatever, swather. And if you have a bunch of rocks laying in the field, it gets in the equipment and just wreaks havoc. So they have in the last few decades come up with machines of automation that can pick these rocks up for you or do a pretty good job. But of course, I lived a very terrible child. I had a very, very challenging childhood where we did everything the hardest way possible. And, someday I'll tell you about the perilous trek up a 2x6 into a manure spreader with a wheelbarrow full of cow manure, and how that did indeed traumatize me to this day. If you don't know what a manure spreader is and a gutter in a barn, I hope you never do. But we're not going to peel the onion back that far. I've been called an ogre and at times, and ogres are like onions, according to Shrek. So anyway, we're gonna peel back the onion there another time, but I would like to talk about yesterday's show just briefly. Yesterday, we were banned from Facebook. I'm not entirely sure why, but I believe it had nothing to do with me, but my team of researchers are looking into it. But instead, we turned lemons to lemonade, and we decided to cross-pollinate our show with another audience, one on YouTube, which is my mouse and I have a YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is called Tumor Tales. Yes, I do indeed still have a brain tumor, as far as I know. I believe, maybe foolishly, I'm of the belief that I'm healing from that. I did run today, folks. I don't know if people with ogres with brain tumors are supposed to be running, but I ran for 3 miles, and I will in fact run for another 3 miles tonight, because I am putting a boat in the water, and I will need to run back to my vehicle to get said vehicle after I drive the boat from the launch to the dock. And I know that it's very elitist for me to talk about my boat, but I don't believe so. I believe everyone should have a boat. And in fact, last week we talked about how cheap it is to actually get a boat. And a boat can be a kayak, a canoe, a schooner, really anything. And I think that I would love to live in a world where everyone has a boat. Yes, that's true. So it's one of my dreams. So anyway, the boat's going in the water, and I will be running back to my car because I'm going to get a little more exercise, and love every second of it. Yeah, it's like 30 degrees today. There's no reason anybody should be putting a boat in the water, but apparently it's supposed to be in the 60s this weekend and in next week. So I'm pretty certain this stay-at-home order is going to be challenged by many a person as we go into next week. You know, which is a nice segue. I do want to talk about. So yesterday's show, I talked about things that are getting me a little bit hot under the collar or just frustrated, and it's namely people who, you know, how we've set up the society now where we're being encouraged to narc out our neighbors and people who don't have tolerance for other people's decisions right now. And that's something I suppose that's bugged me for most of my life. But really, like, everyone needs to chill out a little bit. You know, if you know, your neighbor decides to let their kids play on the street, let it happen. You don't have to, you yourself, go out on the street and mingle if you don't want to. If, you know, your neighbor allows their child to hang out with a few other children, maybe that's okay. In fact, this is something that I really have a beef with, and I just need to vent. I'm on the Davenport right now, and I would encourage everyone to just listen. You guys are my shrink, my psychiatrist. But you know, when this whole thing started, the conventional wisdom was, hey, we keep kids in school. They will, you know, they're not high risk. You know, school's the best place for them. It's the safest place for many children. And in fact, I have been driving by, not on purpose, but you know, I've driven by daycares where the kids are still there playing outside. And someone I know who was very close to me said that he does indeed drop his child off at a daycare. And I am a little perplexed by this. And let me be clear, I'm in favor of that happening, but the daycares are still open. And he said, well, they make us stop at the front door and drop our child off, and they take them. I'm like, okay, but doesn't the kid then go into the room with the other kids, and I would assume have close contact? And then therefore, if they are ill or that family's ill, wouldn't they be passing any of the germs, i.e. the virus, if they have said virus? Would they not be passing that on and then bringing it into your home anyhow? My point being is, what's the point of like dropping them off at the front door if everyone, I guess you could say, well, if you go on, you cough, you could contaminate the surfaces, but that is my point. If your family has it, if one person in your family has it, isn't it pretty likely everyone's going to get it? And then if your kid goes to a daycare or a school, aren't they likely to spread it? Therefore, what's the point of dropping off at the front door? And I'm sure there's a point. I just don't understand it. So we're at an inflection point here in flyover country where we do the show. Those of you that are longtime listeners, you do understand what I mean when I say flyover country. We do have our own elitists, of which I have aspired to be my entire life, but they won't let me in the club. So I've decided to do a podcast and then flick salt in the eyes of the elitists and have an opinion that may or may not conform to their elitist viewpoints. But, you know, here in flyover country, we do have a very disruptive tone to our show. We are people who will not have our voice silenced, and we represent the great silent majority. So, and we're going to keep doing this. It reminds me of the movie, oh gosh, what was it? Pump Up the Volume. Christian Slater back in the 80s. Terrible movie, but he ran this pirate radio station or whatever. You know, he had these independent radio stations that would broadcast on pirated frequencies and stuff, and the whole show is about this guy who was kind of an outcast and how he became kind of a cult hero on the show right before they shut him down. So anyway, I'm not gonna. Oh man, that was probably a spoiler. Oh no. I'm sorry. Disruptor alert. Scott is disrupting the universe by giving an undisclosed spoiler. Anyway, so what's going on in the local real estate market? We're going to talk a little bit about that with a local spin, but really we want, more of a national umbrella outlook here. So locally, what the local market we believe is it's kind of a microcosm of the macro market. If you go to like places like New York, listing activities down like 95%. And it's no question, there's no secret why it is, right? New York, I believe, if you look at the New York, New Jersey, really just New York and New Jersey, I think 60% of all of the COVID-19 activity is right there. I mean, it's New York is by most people's accounts, the densest, it has the highest population density in the country. It has a wide use, almost a overwhelming use of the public transportation system. And when you look at a subway bus system, you have a lot of people packed into a tight quarters. I've been in the New York subway system. I would argue that the ventilation system there is not awesome. It's okay. I've been in the underground in London. I've been in subway systems throughout the country and throughout the world, and I could tell you the environment of the subway systems really worldwide I think are very, very favorable to spreading this virus or any disease for that matter. So I'm sure that had some, it seems obvious that probably has something to do with it. The bus system, anytime you have a lot of people in a small area, and keep in mind, folks, we were told up until about 10 days ago not to wear a mask. So you could have, dozens, hundreds, thousands of people on any given day coughing and depositing these microparticles of gunk from their noses, and mucus and saliva could be coming out. You've seen the videos where people, when they sneeze, you see this cloud. It's quite terrifying, actually. It looks almost like a modern version of gas warfare that's coming out of each person. And if people aren't wearing masks, so while that cloud goes everywhere, and if people aren't wearing masks, they're taking it in. And we're not going to get into the debate about what fabric is most effective for making these masks, but the reality is, any kind of mask that limits the cloud would be good. Now imagine you had literally thousands of people, many of which were infected with the COVID-19, going in the subway systems, on the buses and stuff, using other public transportation, and how fast that this, how fast this is going to spread in that environment. So anyway, so we have an impact locally in New York on the real estate market, which is just, it's awful. It's basically the market there has shut down, and it's no question why. Locally here in the U.S., locally here in the United States, I'm very local all over here, but in the Twin Cities market, Minneapolis, St. Paul, weekend ending April 4th, I think that was the week where there was another almost 6.5 to 7 million people nationwide applying for unemployment. And I think we're up to about 16 or 17 million people who have officially applied for unemployment nationwide at this point. And that's not a good number. Here locally, we're setting, the record numbers in Minnesota. I think the highest number ever was 18,000 in 1 week. And when the first week of the stay-at-home order here in the Twin Cities, and in actually the whole state of Minnesota, but disproportionately the Twin Cities has most of the population. But the number of new applicants went from 18,000 was a record to 120,000, and the next week was like 100,000. So just really almost, I don't know. There was no unemployment insurance during the Great Depression. So I don't, they don't have numbers. I think it's been 50 years since they started tracking numbers of the unemployed. So anyway, so the week ending April 4th, like our new listings were down like 30%. The pending sales did not drop with the same number. The pending sales decreased by about 13 to 14%, which meant that we had an actual inventory decrease because more properties came off the market than were put on. So we lost, 8-9% year over year. Now these numbers are year over year. So new listings from last year decreased like 28%. Pending sales were down about 14%, and the inventory levels decreased by 8%. What does that mean? Well, it means that the market is still balanced in a lot of ways. You have buyers, new listings and inventory are still kind of in equilibrium. So a lot of people predicted that there was going to be this massive meltdown in real estate. And when you say real estate, that's a very broad generalization. Now, residential real estate, I don't believe we're going to see a massive crash or a devaluation of home values. I just believe I'm what I'm seeing here locally, and this isn't nationwide, but we're seeing that the market is still relatively balanced, and people who want to buy a home are still out looking. It's just the number of people that are listing their properties has greatly diminished. And I think we're going to see that trend continue until we get some positivity coming from our elected officials and the media. I believe that we are getting, we're getting spoon fed or fed by the shovelful, lots of negativity. And I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of negativity. I believe that we should be treated like adults, that this isn't good news necessarily that we are facing, but the constant, never-ending 24-hour news cycle of negative reporting is actually got me a little bit pissed off. I mean, I'm frankly sick of it. I would love to see some reporting more about like, hey, what are the positive things that people can do to boost their immune system? Get outside, get some exercise. I feel like we're living in an environment where people are being forced to narc out their neighbors if they think that their neighbor might have a gathering of more than two people. This Orwellian nightmare that we're starting to live out. Originally when this started, the goal was to flatten the curve. Well, by most accounts, we have flattened the curve here. So I believe the conversation needs to swiftly shift to, okay, how do we move forward from this so we can get people back to work? Get people back to work, protect the vulnerable, protect those who are elderly. This disease, we went over the numbers yesterday. Unlike the swine flu, which affected everyone, like that was the scary thing with the swine flu, which not many people are talking about, but that affected all age groups. It appeared equally from the research I've done. And again, I don't work for the National Institute of Health, although I did get my information from their website. But what do we do to move forward? How do we get people back to work, protect the elderly who are vulnerable, protect people with pre-existing conditions who are high risk, and get people back to work and get people earning income again so we don't collapse this entire economy? Because it's okay to be worried about not having your job back, the business that you work for failed. It's okay to be worried about that, because that's a real possibility if this goes on long enough. And you see, there's some contagion to the economic damage. There's a possibility for that now. But what happens to a lot of these business owners who are hanging on? And you could say, well, there's a paycheck protection program, which I have spoke about frequently on the show. And I think that is a good program that's going to provide a lifeline to lots of businesses. But there are conditions in that program that are going to prohibit many business owners from taking advantage of it. And for many, the money is coming too little, too late. And when we get to the other side, how does someone open the restaurant who, had 40 tables and now can only have 10? And how do those economics work? So these are questions we should be asking, and we should be talking about solutions, and we should be doing it with in an environment of positivity versus, daily, hourly updates on the body count. I mean, I find it a little disgusting, to be honest. Like how many are dead today? How many, it's like watching two trains collide, high-speed trains collide in slow motion. And you shouldn't look, but you can't pull your eyes away. And, how do we get get that spark that's in people, and that can-do attitude, and get people fired up again to get out there and, hit this virus head on, right? I get, we can social distance. How do we do that in this new normal that's coming? And yeah, gosh, is that one of the words? Some buzzwords I'm trying to not say, and I think that's one of them. But how do we, number one, positive attitude, right? How do we, try to cleanse ourselves from all the negativity? Yeah, and it's negative if you're dying. If you're sick from this is scary stuff. Let's not diminish that. It's, look, I have a brain tumor. That's negative. That's scary to me. I get it. Like but how do we got to get through this as a society, and God bless all the frontline workers who are out there, the healthcare workers, and hell, the cashiers. These people aren't getting paid that much, they're on the front line. Anyway, I don't mean to pontificate on that, but I'm telling everyone, start focusing on how do we safely get out of this where we're at right now and come out the other side and kick some major ass on that side with a focus on protecting those who are vulnerable. Let's focus on, being healthier too. Like, let's start looking at the foods we're eating and our lifestyle choices. I mean, alcohol consumption is up 50% right now. I got news for you. That's not good. That's not good. Alcohol is very, 88,000 people. It's believed that die from alcohol every year. Alcohol is what from the National Institute of Health, alcohol is a growing women's health issue. The rapid increase in deaths involving alcohol among women is troubling. Well, yeah, it's troubling. Look, I've been to AA meetings. Like, I'm a person who struggled with alcohol, and I don't have an agenda against alcohol, but I'm just saying, like, don't make that be the solution to COVID-19. All right. Don't grab a bag of weed and spend your whole day getting high and avoiding this. Like, let's come up with some solutions. And a lot of that starts with positive attitude and a can-do attitude and solutions focus. So that's what's going to help us with the real estate market here. Like, we have people who are in desperate need of potential assistance for rent right now. One of our goals has been to give these people access to resources and help them find resources so they can afford the housing they're in. And I can tell you, there's a letter penned to the governor where they said, the governor of Minnesota, where they said, well, we're just going to take a rent holiday. I'm like, well, okay, but what is the owner of your property, who could also be unemployed right now, how are they going to pay their mortgage? And then, oh, by the way, how are they going to pay their taxes? I don't see anybody in, it was basically the entire city council of Minneapolis and St. Paul, right? Not the entire, it was most of them though, saying that we should just tell the governor that he's going to pass an executive order that people don't have to pay rent. So contracts are no longer valid. Like, what about the owner who's also the owner of that property, is also living paycheck to paycheck, who can't, if they don't get their rent, maybe can't afford to pay their mortgage, can't pay their taxes, can't pay the utility bills. Like, what are you going to do then? Like these blanket, all one size fits all approaches, I'm telling you, they don't work. All right. Topeka, Kansas isn't the same as New York City. All right. Black Duck, Minnesota is not the same as Miami. And to say that, we should just cancel rents because there's a virus out there doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, there'll be tens of thousands of other people affected by that. Now, if people are struggling to make rent, there's unemployment insurance. There is access to SNAP benefits. There is access to the national unemployment insurance, which is $600 a week. State of Minnesota, I think you start out at about $200 or $300 a week plus $600 a week. This is good for 4 months. There are, look, and I'm not trying to diminish. There's some, like, I know there are people who are trying to work, single mothers or single fathers who are trying to work. And now that their kids are forced to be home from school, they don't know what the hell to do because they got to stay home and educate their kids now. They got to do, stay at home teaching, homeschooling effectively, especially if they're young kids. I've got 2 kindergartners at home right now. God bless my wife, but that has an impact on, not only is our business now suffering because of the coronavirus. Now, one of our income earners is effectively taking out of the equation. And guess what? We don't qualify for unemployment. So we got to figure it out. And it sucks, but we're going to figure it out. And there's a lot of people like us who they're being faced with a no-win situation. They're employed. They're like, they got to stay home with the kids. They're trying to work. They're trying to teach their kids. They're trying to figure out how they're going to make ends meet through this. And those are real problems. And those are real issues. So let's focus on some real solutions and how do we help these people out? How can we get kids back into school? When is that date? The goal was to flatten the curve. Is the curve flattened? Can we move forward now? We need to figure out a way to jumpstart these businesses when we get to the other end. And I think the frustrating part for people is they don't know when the end is, and that's everybody. So we're all living in this realm of, okay, everything's on hold, everything like when do I get back out there and fight? And that's a real challenge for people. So we got to respect that too. Anyway, gosh, just a rant today. Woo. Anyway, so we are on day, whatever. I don't even remember what day. See, that's the problem. I feel like, have you ever read the book, The Count of Monte Cristo? Edmond Dantes, right? Oh man, it's been a while since I read the book. The movie, there was a movie that came out and a few years back. Was it James Carvisiel or whatever, and Guy Pearce, I believe, were both in it. But anyway, it was basically a guy who was put in prison in the Chateau d'If or whatever it was. Basically, was framed. All right, Edmond Dantes. He became the Count of Monte Cristo. He found this. I'm not gonna spoiler alert. Anyway, but like when you feel like like I know a lot of people right now. You feel like you're just like you're in this. Like none of the days mean anything because they're all like the same, right? You're locked in your house and stuff. So, I'm having a little bit of a difficulty with that, even though I am still forced I'm not forced. I'm making a choice to go to work every day, and I happen to really love what I do, and I'm trying to help people. Like that is my goal every day. I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to be positive for my family. I'm trying to be positive for, obviously my kids, my wife, my family, extended family, trying to be positive for the employees, trying to be positive for our clients that we serve, trying to be positive force for our tenants. We put together a very, very long list of resources that tenants can use if they need assistance. And we continue to update that because look, if we can help them out, obviously it helps our clients, the owners that we serve, but it takes stress off the tenants. It takes stress off the property owners that we serve. It takes stress off our employees. If we can help people, it makes them feel good. So we're basically looking at this as, an opportunity for us to grow for sure. And I'm looking at it as an opportunity for me to grow. And I'm frustrated too. I know I talk to a lot of small business owners, who have been compelled to close down, and they're not sure what to do. They're not sure when they get to open. They don't know even if they do get to open, what that looks like. And you look at the airline industries, they've, I saw the numbers today, and I apologize, I didn't write them down, but air travel's down like 95%. These airlines, it seems like they go bankrupt every 15 years, but and I'm not making light of that, but that seems to be kind of the pattern, the cycle, and they're needing billions of dollars to keep them afloat, because they don't want to furlough or lay off all their employees. But obviously their employees don't have anything to do. There's no planes flying. There's no people traveling. What's happening with TSA, all the shops that are in the airports, I imagine if they're open, they're not making any money. These things are going to snowball. So, you say, well, you don't care. Like, you just want the economy to open. You're damn right. I want the economy to open, because things are going to snowball. We're not going to be able to print our way out of this. Look up the Weimar Republic in Germany and look at what happened with inflation there after World War I. Go check out Argentina and figure out, look at how their currency gets devalued. It seems like every, 8 or 9 years, there's another crisis there, a monetary crisis. So yes, I do want us to get back to work safely, of course, but let's focus on solutions and how we do that, because I know even like medium-sized companies that are doing, we're doing very well, are also facing some problems now that this has cascaded throughout the economy. There's, I think Boston Scientific had a 20% across the company reduction in pay. And that's going to happen more and more throughout different industries if we can't figure out a way to start moving again. So yes, I know it's a rant. Yes, I know I keep talking about it, but there are, there is a brighter future ahead. We just have to, sometimes, a miracle needs a hand. Sometimes we need to push. So, a lot of talk. I'm going to just kind of wrap up with this. There was some banter between the president and Sweden, and apparently he made the comment, Mr. Trump made a comment that Sweden's suffering very badly. Sweden did that, the herd, they call it the herd. Sweden's suffering very badly. It's a way of doing it, but everyone has been watching. Everyone else so far, almost every country has done it the way we've done. We've chosen to do it. The foreign minister, Anne Lindy, said that his assessment of the country's approach was factually wrong. Some countries seem to think that we aren't doing anything, but we are doing a lot of things that suit Sweden. Sweden's strategy is no lockdown, and we rely very much on people taking responsibility for themselves. Let's see. Anders Tegnell, chief epidemiologist at the Swedish Public Health Agency, also rejected Trump's comments. No, as we have said here before, we won't share his opinion. Of course, we're suffering. Everyone in the world is suffering right now in different ways. But Swedish healthcare, which I guess he alludes to, is very difficult to understand, is taking care of this in a very, very good manner. Oh my gosh. So anyway, so they go on and on and on. But Sweden remains confident in its strategy and its citizens. Prime Minister Stefan Löfven said last month in a televised address, "We who are adults need to be exactly that, adults, not spread panic or rumors." And I agree with that statement. Like, we do not want to spread panic or rumors. We want to be here. We want to be strong, and we want to be resources for people. So with that, this has been it's been an odd week for me. It's been very, very, I don't know, just up and down a little bit. But I'm optimistic. I'm telling you, I'm very optimistic. I have faith in people, and I have faith in our ability to make healthy choices. And again, that's the challenge. Let's make healthier choices when it comes to fitness and nutrition and stuff. That I believe is one of the best ways to protect ourselves from, being infected from anything. Really doesn't have to be limited to the coronavirus. And that's a guy who's done a lot of research on that in the last 8 months. I've been compelled to. And how do we, get some exercise, get some, get a positive mindset every day. It all helps. And turn the damn TV off. I mean, look, it's just, there are some good stuff. There are some good stuff. There is some good stuff to watch. There is, but you got to turn the news off. It's too much sometimes. And I'm speaking obviously for myself, and do what you want. If you need to watch, 14 hours of COVID updates every day, and then God bless you, do it. But I've decided to kind of tone it down a little bit and just focus on positive outcomes. I'm working on an app that I started actually last year, where we can basically take the entire real estate transaction, and you could buy a house and do a closing without ever meeting, without ever having to meet any of the players in the transaction, yet have this experience be as what's the word I'm looking for? It would basically replicate being there. So this application is going to be phenomenal. It's ironic. I started working on it about 3 years ago at the conceptual stage, and we started the coding last fall, and I had to put it on hold for a couple months just to kind of get my bearings with my personal health. But we are going to light the fires and kick the tires on this thing. And I think by the end of June, we're going to have a fully functional real estate app where you could literally, from showing, doing virtual showings, virtual inspections, virtual closings, doc storage in the cloud, all the photos, everything. It's going to change real estate. So I'm excited about that. We're going to talk about more about that in the upcoming weeks. So with that, folks, I am really glad you joined us today. I'm Scott Picard. This is the Real Estate World Podcast. I have to get out of here. I have got an appointment, and I really appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully Facebook will let us in. If not, we're going to try YouTube. And if YouTube doesn't work, we're going to Ask Jeeves. Thank you very much. I'm out of here. Boom.